Good evening. It's 6:30. Members of council are assembled when you're ready to begin.
Thank you very much, Morgan. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Council of the Town of Saugeen Shores. Welcome all members. Welcome everybody in the gallery this evening and everyone watching via the live stream. We're glad everybody's here. The second item on the agenda is the land acknowledgement, and the Vice Deputy Mayor has that.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We acknowledge that we are meeting on the traditional lands and treaty territory of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, which consists of the Chippewas of Saugeen and the Chippewas of Nawash unceded First Nation. We understand this land holds immense significance to the people of Saugeen Ojibwe Nation. We appreciate those who live and work alongside us today and who continue the traditions of their ancestors as stewards of the land we are privileged to inhabit. We thank them for the contributions they have made in both caring for the land and in shaping this community. We commit to truth and reconciliation, to acknowledging the truth about what happened to Indigenous peoples because of colonization, and to reconciliation, which begins with each and every one of us. As a local government and public organization, we are dedicated to learning and about Indigenous culture, to fostering a better relationship with First Nations and their people, and we commit ourselves to actions that move us forward on a path to healing along with the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation.
Thank you. So the third item on the agenda is disclosures of pecuniary interest. Ask any member if you have one of those you would like to declare at this time. Seeing none, of course, you can do that anytime if you need to. No additions, deletions, or amendments. There were the minutes for our last planning meeting were adopted on December the 8th, so we don't have to worry about that tonight. So we're then on to public meetings, and we do have one public meeting on the agenda. So next on the agenda is a public meeting for minor revision to draft plan of subdivision 41T-2016-02.46 and zoning bylaw amendment Z-2025-047 for Blue Water. This is a public meeting under the Planning Act. If anyone from the public is interested in this application or wishes to receive a notice of the decision, please send an email to bcplpe@brucecounty.on.ca. First, we will receive a report from planning staff. Then we will hear from the public who are here in person, virtually, or who have submitted correspondence to the email address mentioned earlier. Then council members will have an opportunity to ask questions, and I will ask them to reserve their comments on the application until we've heard from the public. Members of the public are advised that the right to appeal the decision on this application is limited to specified persons and public bodies as defined in the Planning Act, or the owner or applicant of lands subject to the amendment who have provided oral or written comments to council on the application before the decision is made. After we've heard from the public, council will discuss and consider a recommendation on this application. So I will now declare the public meeting to be open, and I'll ask the planner on the file to present the application. And this one has Karina Smith as the planner. So Ms. Smith, when you're ready.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. So the application before you tonight is from Barry's Construction Limited. They are seeking to revise the existing Blue Water draft approved plan of subdivision, and to also facilitate that there is a zoning bylaw amendment application. The purpose of this public meeting today is to present the proposal to council and to get feedback from council and the community. Staff have not provided a recommendation for a decision to be made today. We will bring back a report at a later date to this council that will speak to agency and public comments that have been received. So the Blue Water subdivision is in the south end of Port Elgin. The entire subdivision is just over 26 hectares. And it was draft approved by the county in 2016. The zoning that was in effect on this particular parcel was R42, which is the current zoning that is still in effect. The plan of subdivision is approved for 538 residential units. The applicant has submitted a revision to the draft plan of subdivision, which would increase the number of units by an additional 134. Specifically on block 258. And the applicant is looking to subdivide that block into 2 separate lots, which would allow for an apartment building to be erected on each of those lots. The zoning bylaw amendment is seeking to increase various or amend various provisions of the zoning bylaw specific to this site. The current zoning on the property, as I noted earlier, is residential 4th density special, specifically R4-2. The residential 4th density zone does permit apartment buildings, and the applicant is looking to amend certain provisions, specifically the minimum lot area for each of the proposed lots in which the single apartment building would be located. The applicant is also looking to increase the building height. The current R4 zone permits a maximum building height of 12 meters, and the applicant is proposing 17.5 meters, which would facilitate 5-story apartment buildings. The applicant is also seeking to reduce the landscape open space on each of the proposed lots. I have provided details in the report in terms of those relief requirements that the applicant is seeking, but I'll just specifically note that for the minimum lot area, the applicant is looking for a reduction, and that is a reflection of the increased density that's being proposed on each of those parcels. The current R4 zone calculates lot area based on the number of units. And so with the increase in number of units proposed, that reduces the lot area that the applicant is seeking. Again, the maximum building height is proposed to be increased from 12 meters, which depending on building design would be about the equivalent of 3 stories or 4 stories. And they are seeking 17.5 meters, which is 5-story building. The minimum landscape open space that the applicant is seeking relief from is a reflection of what the required lot area is. So typically it's a percentage of the lot area. In the R4 zone, it's specifically 30% landscape open space that is required. The applicant is looking to reduce that based on what would be the required lot area. However, if this proposal is approved, how the bylaw would actually read is that there would be a permitted lot area, and a percentage of that is what would be dedicated to open space purposes. So the zoning bylaw would specifically identify the proposed lot area and the percentage of landscape open space provided for each of those parcels. The applicant has indicated that they are doing an additional traffic analysis as had been requested through comments provided by town staff. And so we are expecting that assessment to be provided to our office. The applicant has also provided some additional information beyond what was submitted with their original application, which is also under review by agencies at this time. And so I don't have a full set of comments from agencies at this point in time, but I can advise that we did receive comments from the town, from the historic Saugeen Métis, the Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority, Westario Power, Bruce County Transportation and Environmental Services, and Canada Post. We have also received comments from members of the public. All landowners within 120 meters of the subject parcel were circulated the application as well as the public meeting notice. And we did receive public comments back from just under 30 individuals or households. And we anticipate we will receive some additional comments as well. Beyond what was provided in council's agenda package today, there were 2 additional public comments that were received after the agenda had been finalized, and those were circulated to council this afternoon for your review. I know that the applicant is here to provide further comment to this council, and there are various members of the public who also wish to speak. I'll conclude my presentation and turn it back to you.
Okay, thank you very much. So now we will hear from members of the public, and we'll begin with the applicant or their agent. So we will turn it over to the applicant, who I believe is here this evening. So when you come on up, just introduce yourself, and the floor is yours.
That's on. Stuart Doyle with Barry's Construction. Now, oh, there we go. It's firing up there. So I'm assuming that, where am I pointing this thing? Oh, Okay, well, good. Well, we'll figure that out as we go, I guess. Thanks for Mayor, members of council, staff, and the folks behind me that came out tonight. This is obviously the start of the process. It's a public process. It's important for you guys and also me to hear from folks that live in the area. I've obviously talked to several of them in the past, and I'm looking forward to hear some more comments this evening. So again, the start of the process, the public process. So it's important to note that whatever I do say tonight is a proposal. You know, I've applied for something, but we are obviously waiting on comments, as the planner said, from other agencies, from the public, and from council. So that's what we're here to do this evening. And again, I'm going to go through this fairly quickly. Obviously, there's some other folks that want to speak, and the planner's report, I think, covered most of the high level topics here. So I'll run through this, and again, I'm always here to answer any questions, and I'm sure there will be some that come up through the meeting. So again, not sure. Okay, so quickly, just a project overview of the proposal. It's a three-phase development, and I will refer to our other development of the north end of town, which I do understand is different context, different area, but it's a very similar development. There's 2 or 3 of these in town that they work well, and you know, they found success for how they've been built. So again, very similar to what we did at the other end of town, almost identical lot area. I think it's within about 1,000 square meters, so the site's been shown to be functional. So a 3-phase project, and phase 1, 91 units, phase 2, 65 units, and phase 3 is proposed to be, again, another 91 unit building. Sorry, can't do 2 things at once here. So again, what the planner went over, we're looking for 3 amendments to the existing zoning bylaw, which is lot area, building height, and open space. I won't go through them all again. This is the local map with the zoning. Just some, you know, there's a Collector Road, Bruce Street, that's hopefully looking to be built soon. We made an agreement with the town to try to help that move along, and I know they're still waiting on approvals for that. Our site shown in the bottom right-hand corner. There's a town lands at the top, and obviously the water is to the left. Oh, it's not my bad. So moving on, the proposed amendments, again, are lot area. Looks to be about a 20% overall reduction in lot area. And it's important to note that the town did just go through an OP update, which did increase several of the targets for density. Now, the lot area portion of the zoning bylaw wasn't changed with that, which maybe that should be considered, but as we stand, it has not. And some of the most recent OP amendments were the intensification target for development properties, which this is, to limit sprawl, increase diversity, and housing and overall density of housing. So that's what the purpose of increasing that density in the OP was. And also the target for medium to high density, which is considered a high density development because it's over 90 units per hectare, was increased. So the target that town council decided for us to look at when we're doing these developments was increased for greater intensification and development of housing. So different types of housing and trying to get more units on a lot if possible. Okay. Well, that's that slide, sorry. Minimum open space. Now, it does make quick mention in the planning report that the open space requirement has slightly, the calculation method has slightly changed in Saugeen Shores the past little while. So originally, our application did not include a reduction in open space for an amendment. However, the way that we've been asked to calculate it, which is fine, does require it. So for context, at our other development of the north end of town, where we did have a small amendment, each unit had approximately 17.5 square meters of amenity space included. For this development, we're proposing just over 27. So we have more amenity spaces per unit. However, just because of the calculation change, that's why we're in a position to ask for an amendment here. So this, sorry, I'd scroll back, but with respect to the height, now I know that's obviously a sensitive issue and why a lot of folks are here. This is not without precedence with the R421 lands at the other end of town. Again, I know it's a different area. I know it's a different context. However, it is an R4 zone abutting an R2 zone. directly. And the approval there was for exactly what we are looking for, a 17.5-meter tall building, 9 meters from the property line, which is directly abutting single-family homes. So when we looked at how we wanted to lay this site out, I obviously looked at different approvals. I looked at the zoning bylaw that includes on Schedule C some different, setbacks for height. So I tried to have that guide this development, but again, we're looking for comments here and feedback. So I will move on. We did do a shadow study as well. Wasn't included in the original submission. But we did think it was probably best with talking with the town and the county to include that, which I will maybe just shoot over to there. That works. So the purpose of this study was really to compare what we're proposing, which is the top half in red. I tried to clean it up a bit because it does look very similar, which is a 17.5-meter high building at about a 9 to 14-meter setback from the, whether it be the north lot line. So, and then the bottom half, which is outlined in green, is what's permitted currently in the existing zoning bylaw. So that building there is 40 feet high, 12 meters, and it's at 5 meters offset the north property line. So the idea here was to compare what we're proposing at the top and what we're currently permitted to do within the existing bylaw. Now, it's tough to see. I know the full PDF is online for folks to look at. It is somewhat difficult to discern between the two because the difference is so. It's difficult to see the difference. Not to say that there isn't an impact. I'm just trying to illustrate what it does look like. Moving on. The traffic study I was hoping to have done by today. Unfortunately, I have not received it yet. So we will have to look at that when we get it in and have that inform our application as well. This is just a section of the official plan, which is also included in the planning report. So I won't, I'm probably coming up on my 5 minutes here, so I won't go over that. Quickly, the rental units that we are proposing and I'm just going over phase 1. They include several amenities. Each unit has a balcony. We would propose at 10% or greater would be affordable units. Now that would be through the CMHC program, which I think many of you heard about when we were at the housing forum a few weeks ago, the MLI Select program, who've also just announced another, I think, $20 billion nationwide for apartment buildings in that fund. The current, and I didn't read some comments. I did want folks to know I did take the time to read all the comments. I think they're really important about what the affordable housing criteria here is. In my experience in Saugeen Shores, and not much has changed with the CMHC in the urban or sort of rural areas, it would be between $1,100 and $1,300 likely per unit for the affordable units, if that just gives context to that. Move on. Just some pictures of the units and the building that we did at the other end of town. Construction process, I won't bore everybody. So this was an important one for me because a lot of folks that came to me were upset about why they didn't know about this. Why weren't we told when we bought a home? Why didn't the real estate agent tell us? And it's important to understand that a lot of things have changed in Saugeen Shores, Bruce County, the province, and nationally in the past several years, not just with what I was mentioning about funding. Obviously, Bill 17's gone through, which is the Building Homes Faster Act, or whatever that might be. The federal government's made a lot of changes. Locally, council's made changes to the official plan, to the zoning, which a lot of that has funneled us towards apartment buildings. And the housing market currently is not strong. Interest rates are high. Mortgage rates are higher than what people remember in the last few years, and they're not likely to be going down. So a lot of folks aren't looking to buy, they're looking to rent right now. They're looking, folks are coming into town for jobs, whether that would be at Bruce Power, the service industry, the local hotel, a restaurant, and perhaps they're on some sort of assistance, so we're trying to cater to different folks different people that are coming to town that can't afford houses right now or not looking to buy at this point. So that's where we see a lot of the market going right now. So when we've heard the comments, why didn't you tell us? Well, 2 years ago, my thought would have been Northport would have been done. We build 200 apartments, you know, we're good, but the demand stayed strong, and that's why we're trying to continue with this. So I will get into the summary here, which I think I probably covered most of it. We continue to see strong demand in Port Elgin. Obviously, a lot of recent changes in all levels of government to facilitate higher density housing. And it is important to note, and I know it's been said, that this property is approved for apartment buildings and up to 40 feet. And I know that's not what we're applying for, what we're proposing, but the site does include zoning for apartment buildings now. And sorry?
We just,
Sorry, I'm sorry, I shouldn't,
address the
apologize.
chair.
Yeah.
Let's have no
Yep.
reference from the gallery. Now you can wrap it up if you can, Mr.
Yep.
Doyle.
Just one thing to note, I think is really important, that rents have come down in Saugeen Shores over the past 2 or 3 years with the supply that's come online. I did some calculations today and we figured look close to 5 to 6%. Traditional housing has slowed considerably. The market has shifted away from traditional ownership, and people are moving to Saugeen Shores for a lot of different reasons. You got a great town hall here now with the aquatic center, the ball complex, the trails, the waterfront. People want to live here. They just at this point, and maybe for the few years or however long it will be, it's maybe not in traditional ownership. So I'm here to answer any questions, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Doyle. Okay, so now we will hear from members of the public who are here to speak in support of the application with questions, concerns, or objections to the application. I do have a list here of about 9 folks, I think, who have already, actually 8, because one of them was Mr. Doyle. So 8 folks who have pre-registered. So I'll go through this list first, and then when we're done with that list, I'll ask if there's other folks in the gallery who wish to speak, and council will hear all those who wish to speak to us on this. So first I have Joe McTaggart. Mr. McTaggart, when you're ready, sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I was hoping I would be later because I'd be agree with there's a lot better speakers in our group that should be up here first. My biggest concern is how big this structure is. This weekend I'm shoveling my driveway. My snowblower is broken. I watched Barry's Construction drag snow down our street in dump trucks because the property on the north side possibly is too small. He doesn't have enough room to dispose of the snow there. So that is now coming over, and he can maybe answer that if that's where those trucks were coming from. I know there's minimum setbacks, and he talked about the minimum setbacks. Meeting the minimum setbacks is wonderful. I'm glad we have them. We have to have some sort of code, but we do want, this is a small town. The reason I'm here is it's a beautiful town. The reason so many of us have moved here is because it is a beautiful spot. We don't want to be like Toronto. That's the worst word we can use for you. We don't want to have that density. So I have repeatedly suggested building it closer to the CAW road, and minimum setbacks are exactly that, minimum. You can increase those setbacks. You can put more property to that. And some people have said, you know, we don't want to put farmland, housing on farmland, but we also don't want to create a town that doesn't have green space. And we don't want to create a housing development that doesn't have green space. When you go to the site on the north side, and I've asked that, I hope that all of you have looked at that and measured out and seen, when you look at it from my backyard, I am going to look up at this monstrosity of a house here. There will be no room for a tree on his property. There will be no green space. There will be no green space for those people living in that 5-story apartment block. There is none on the north side. And I understand it's a housing option. We need those options. I may, like I thought about it this weekend, I may move into that building at some point. I will get to an age when I can't shovel snow and I don't want to do yard work, and I don't. And so I may one day, as I bought a house from Barry's, I may end up renting an apartment from Barry's. But I want it to have some green space around it. I want it to have setback. I want it to fit in the neighborhood it's going into. So I've repeatedly said, put it further out, put green space around it, put a park in there, bring it so it steps down. We've done this, and you have created a policy of along 21, the main street, a block either side is 5-story buildings. His comment was that there is already one, and I think that's the Mary Rose subdivision that has been approved. This is along Bruce Road. Unfortunately, we talked about that, about how many properties are being building, and Stu told me that it is not going to be go ahead. That property is currently up for sale. If it's already approved and for sale, put it up there. But even there, I would say the same thing. Green spaces, create housing that is beautiful, that people want to live. We are in a neighborhood full of houses, and you have all these people coming to here expecting this. You don't want to have this in your backyard built like this. And I'm not against development. I do want this land to be developed. I expected it to be developed at some point. It will be something, but it has the option of being townhouses. It has the option of being a nursing home, which would certainly be valuable for this community. There are a lot of other options to do on this property, and there's a lot of ways to build this entire project that would better fit in our community. And that's what I would encourage you to do, and encourage Stu to do, is to build something that fits within our community and makes it attractive for people coming in the future, because we're going to continue to come. The growth is not stopping. We're going to be as big as Owen Sound in a few years, not because we're not attractive, but we want to continue to have that and continue to have that kind of construction. So I appreciate your time, and I hope that you can help us out with this. And certainly I hope that Stu will work with you, and we will have something built that fits our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McTaggart. So next we'll have, we'll just keep I appreciate the applause and whatnot, but we'll keep the applause down, please. We want to just keep moving along here. So next we have Steve Reisler. Is it Reisler? Hope I'm pronounced. When you make it to the microphone, sir, the floor is yours.
Yes, my name is Steve Reisler. I live at, what's the address? 486 Ivings Drive, with my wife Karen. There's a lot to unpack here. And I've heard that there's a 5-minute time limit. I'm hoping that you'll allow me an opportunity to explain exactly why we're here and why we're opposing this. Thanks. The last 2.5 months.
Just make sure you're speaking right into the microphone, Mr. Reisler, so folks
Okay,
online
sorry.
can hear you.
The last 2.5 months, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say have been very stressful for me, for my wife, and for most people here. There is a lot of worry about their futures, their future quality of life. There's a lot of people here who are either retired or close to retirement, hoping that this would be their last home. They're worried about loss of sunlight. They're worried about the noise that's going to be from the balconies that are going to be so close. They're worried about perhaps if they can't handle all this, forcing themselves to move, uproot. Some people have health issues, which compounds that problem. And so they're here expressing the human side of things here. We've heard from the planner, it's fairly dry stuff, and I'm going to deal with some of that myself, but it's important that you see the human side of this. And there's no better way to do that than try and imagine yourselves in our backyard. So imagine you're looking at this huge 5-story building, and if you need an example of that, you can go to, I think it's 1027 Waterloo Street, and stand about 30 feet, which is roughly how far it's going to be from our lot line, 32 feet at one end, maybe about 45 at the other, and look up and see what you see. That's what we're going to see. Imagine as you are month to month watching this building go up and seeing less and less sunlight. I don't think I need to be a doctor to tell you how important sunlight is to mental and physical health. And there are some months where there's going to be no sunlight. November, very little. December, almost zero. And there's a gentleman here who's going to explain that a little bit in more detail. Imagine being in your backyard and you're just gardening or chatting with friends on your patio or your deck, and you hear all the noise coming from the balconies. Roughly, I'm saying roughly 36 balconies, 32, 35 feet away. So imagine that yourself. That's what we're going to have to live with. Then imagine the construction for 3.5 years. every day, pounding, noise, dust, construction traffic, 35, 40 feet away, possibly even shaking your houses. That's what we're going to have to live with. Speaking personally, I retired after many years of practicing law. I've been in disputes and conflicts before, but I didn't expect to see myself back in the trenches again, so to speak. But here I am with one goal, and that is to try and point out the obvious to you, that this application contravenes your town zoning bylaws and your own official plan. And that's what has to be focused on. So if you give me a minute, I just want to review a couple of those things. So as you heard before, I don't think any of us are opposed to development. We're not here opposing development per se. We're opposing this development in this block. They are trying to squeeze a high-density development into a medium-density block. That's why you get all these problems that I enumerated. So you've heard from the planner what the zoning is, R42. The zoning is, the regulations are in section 10, not in section 3, which is the high-density Schedule C zone. This is what I call persuasion by distraction. The focus should be on section 10. Those are the regulations to be applied. So section 10, you've heard that the building height maximum is 12 meters. So they want 17 and a half. That's a 46% variation. That's not a variance. In my respectful submission, you can't even call that relief. That's removal. They're asking you to remove that section. Then there's the issue of the minimum lot area. Again, we have certain rules in the zoning bylaw that require a minimum lot area. And these rules are here for a reason. They're to make sure that if the building is built in accordance with those rules, that we don't have the issues that you've heard people describe. That's why they're there. So what happens when you change a medium density zone into a high density zone? This is what happens. Let's talk about the official plan. And I think it's noteworthy that there's very little in the reports that you've seen from the planners that deal with the official plan and core principles of the official plan. And the core principles that I'm talking about are compatibility with surrounding neighborhoods. You see that in several sections of the official plan. And I want to refer you to a couple of them. You can write it down. I know you don't have it in front of you. 1.2.2.1, housing goal. It is the goal of this plan to provide opportunities for a range of housing types and densities to accommodate a diversity of lifestyles, age groups, income levels, and persons with special needs, and to ensure that new housing styles are in character with existing neighborhoods. Then we go to settlement area policies in 3.2.5. One of the objectives, to ensure that new development and redevelopment are compatible with existing or planned neighborhood uses. We've heard the word intensification talked about. Okay, so what does the official plan say about intensification? 3.3.5.2, the following criteria shall be considered when evaluating proposals for housing intensification. Item C, compatibility with the existing neighborhood character in terms of scale, massing, height, siting, setbacks, parking, and amenity area, so that a transition between existing and proposed buildings is provided. Item F, capability to provide adequate buffering and other measures to minimize any identified impacts. But the buffer they're proposing is a 6-foot fence between us and a building that's 17.5 meters high. How ridiculous is that? It's impossible to buffer a 5-story building from low-rise housing 35 feet away. And yet the planners from the applicant side don't want to deal with that. So let's talk about that. So in addition to ignoring the sections of the official plan, they want you to see block 258 as a high density plan. It's not a high density zone. It's not. It's a medium density zone. So I'm suggesting that you don't take your eye off the ball and start looking at it as a high density zone. It's a medium density zone. The medium density criteria apply to that. And the medium density criterion, I don't know what this is doing here. I don't want this. Thanks. The medium density criterion in the official plan is what council should be guided by, not the high density criterion, which is what the planners want you to look at, because that's what they quote in their report. So the development criterion for medium density residential is in the official plan, 3.4.2.3.1. And the very first one is respects the character of existing development in terms of height, bulk, massing, and density, using existing land uses adjacent to and near the subject property as a guide to the nature of existing development. Item E, the proposed development is appropriately set back, landscaped, and buffered from the surrounding residential properties. This is the medium density criterion, not the high density criterion. So their planner cites the high density criterion. It's irrelevant. This is not a high density block. So it's easy to say we comply with the high density criterion because the high density criterion doesn't say anything about compatibility. So they want you to avoid that. But we're not avoiding that. And you shouldn't.
So we have passed over 10 minutes, Mr. Reza, so if you could wrap up, please, sir.
You know, it would be nice if I could just finish. I won't be long.
Council's allotted 5 minutes for these presentations. I've given you 10, so I'd ask you please to wrap it up. We've got a lot of people to speak, sir. You can make a submission in writing as well.
Well, I have made a submission in writing. So I hope people, somebody at council will have read that and will read it. They haven't. The point I'm trying to make is that the focus should be on your zoning bylaws and your official plan, not that this block somehow should be fictionalized as a high density block so that they can say that they fit within that they've exceeded the zoning bylaw for a Schedule C zone. We're not in a Schedule C zone. They want to compare it to Northport and Waterloo. There is no comparison. There's no low-rise residential buildings that are being overlooked by balconies there, and it's far away. And it's bordered by a commercial plaza and a retirement home. There's no comparison. And the other thing I'd like to mention is, and somebody mentioned this to me a couple of days ago when I was speaking with them, they asked me, well, didn't you buy a house that was beside a medium density zone? I had to say, yeah, I guess I did. Maybe I didn't realize all of the uses that could be done with a medium density zone, but I'm stuck with it. That's what I bought. So then this person said, well, didn't Barry buy a block that was medium density? Yeah, I guess that's true. So why is it that he should get to change what he bought and we should suffer the consequences because we can't change? We've made our investment. We live there. We've built our decks, built our homes. We can't just uproot because he wants to change his plans. It's not right. I have a lot more to say, but you're not going to give me any more time, so I'll have to end it here. This should be totally rejected. In my view, this is a no-brainer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rizzler. So now we'll hear from Karen McLean. Ms. McLean, is Ms. McLean here? Oh, there she is. Whenever you're ready, Ms. McLean, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I live at 486 Ivings with my husband, Steve Reisler. And we've lived there since 2023. We bought our home as a new build from Barrie. We had downsized from a larger home on Green Street at that time. And for us, this was a perfect spot to retire to. It was sold to us as a beautiful southern exposure, which is great because I love to garden. And so I've been able to grow some lovely plants and vegetables in the backyard. But with this proposed 5-story building, it's going to be completely impossible to enjoy our backyard in any way, shape, or form. We're going to be completely towered over by this building, 20, 25, who knows how many balconies and people with a bird's eye view right into our backyard. So all enjoyment of our backyard will be completely erased. There'll be no sun, no flowers, no vegetables. And it's just really totally unacceptable when I know real estate agents don't have crystal balls, but the real estate agents that were representing Barrie and selling only his homes had told us there was absolutely no development plan, that whenever that was developed, and it would be years down the road, it would be townhouses and single families because that's what Barrie builds. So we were completely shocked when this proposal came in the mail for a 5-story building. The other problem I can see being a huge problem down the road is we really like that location as well because it's very close to the McKinnon Lane access for the beach. And in really 7-8 minutes, we can walk right down to the end of Ivings and we are at the beach. And you have that whole area being developed in apartment buildings. You're going to have hundreds and hundreds of people walking down Ivings through the cornfield where you're not supposed to walk and down the trail you're not supposed to walk on, going down to the beach at McKinnon Lane. And so I'm not sure how council plans to deal with that problem, but that's going to be a huge problem. And then I'll be brief. I'll just finish up by saying that back in 2022, prior to the election of the council that's present here tonight, there were interviews done and many of you were asked about your ideas and beliefs about the future development of Saugeen Shores. And so I would just like to remind you of some of the things that were said at that time. Development needs to fit in with present neighborhoods, need to keep green spaces. Keeping the small town feel is one of the main concerns I hear from residents. Protecting the charm and character are very important. The town needs to look at where they are developing and whether the new development fits in with the existing landscape. I believe in progress and preservation. We can have growth, but we must protect the natural beauty that draws us here. New neighborhoods need to have green spaces and not cash in lieu of green spaces. I believe we deserve to be part of a community that values small town charm. As we add more buildings and roads to the community, we need to be vigilant about maintaining a people-focused quality of life. So I ask this council to reject this proposal and to use some common sense so that whatever is developed in this space is harmonious with our neighborhood. We do not want to live in a neighborhood that looks like the GTA. So please keep our small town charm. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McLean. So next we have Frank Kuderink, I should say. Mr. Kuderink, when you're ready, sir, the floor is yours.
Good evening. My name is Frank Krurink. I live on Stickle Street, and you're going to hear many concerns about this development. I'm going to go at this from a little bit different view. Mr. Reisler mentioned health concerns. I will not rehash any of the other stuff. So in my personal situation, I will have a 5-story blank wall right behind my lot line, about 40 feet away. It's going to block all the sunlight. If I want to see the sky, I'm going to have to look up like this. That's the only way I'm going to see the sky. I will not have any sunlight directly from the afternoon or into the evening. There are many studies that explore the relationship between the direct sunlight and the physical and mental health of people. When a tall building blocks the direct sunlight, the primary effect of that is a lack of vitamin production in the body, disruptions to the circadian system rhythms, potential negative impacts on the mental health, such as depression, mood swings, and seasonal affective disorders, also known as the cabin fever. And it can also lead to many other physical problems because of the lack of production of vitamin D. The tall buildings in the urban settings block this direct sunlight, and I believe no thought has been given to this at all, and I think that's a big neglect. So I'm asking Barry's Construction, the planners for this development, and the council to have a look at this and take all this into consideration and see how this will affect the people that live on Ivings and Stickle Street, not only there, but also on Bruce Street and that whole environment there, that whole neighborhood. So please have a look at all these things and consider it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fruitner. So next we have Ralph Earn. Mr. Earn, whenever you're ready, sir, the floor is yours.
Just have a small page here. Hi, this is Rolf and Yvette. We're at 478 Ivings Drive. I would like to know how many people in the planning department thought this was actually a good idea. A 40 to 60 foot rental apartment building, 40 feet from my 20-foot backyard. That's only 2 full-size pickup trucks placed back to back away from my fence. Does it have to be this close? 1 block closer to Highway 21, the zoning wouldn't be a problem. High-density apartments in a small town of 10,000, 12,000 people? I don't know. After extensive reading, the building doesn't seem to meet any of the urban planning guidelines. There seems to be a lot of these rentals coming to this area. Port Elgin is a family-friendly town. Young families don't dream of a 2-bedroom rental. Think of how many families could benefit from that field full of homes, not income-producing rentals. There is a lot of room in that field, which I assume is owned by Barry's. This isn't an infilling or a greenbelt situation. So in conclusion, does this really fit Port Elgin's vision of housing? There seems to be many options here. Let's try for a solution that benefits everyone. That's all I got.
Thank you, Mr. Earn. Okay, so next we have Sabrina Sutcliffe, and Ms. Sutcliffe is joining us via Zoom. So do we have, oh no, she's here. Oh, no. Yeah, well, if we have somebody on Zoom, then bring them in, please. Maybe if you're listening there, just make sure to introduce yourself once we have you live here.
I can go ahead if he's not. He just said that.
I think the clerk says, oh, he's is Johan is his name? So Johan, if you can hear me, just unmute yourself and go ahead. The floor is yours.
Thank you, everybody. Mayor, acting chair, members of council. My name is Johan van Dryden. Can you guys hear me all right? Just looking to confirm you guys can hear me.
Johan, this is Caravan Mile, and I'm just on the meeting, but I can't hear the council chambers either. So I think just stay tuned.
That's a question I have, but I'm aware, if it does comply.
If you just ask all of your questions, I'll make note of them and then I'll put them when you're done.
Okay.
I'll put them to the appropriate folks. Okay.
Okay, perfect. I would also like to understand whether this has been fully considered in the planning, so they both kind of coincide together. The second question I have is regarding fire safety and emergency access. My question, been a formal assessment confirming that the existing fire truck infrastructure, turning radius, ladder reach, and response capacity are sufficient for all of these buildings of this height and density? Were any infrastructure upgrades identified as necessary? And if so, who would be responsible for the costs? Will this assessment be shared publicly? So again, just reiterating, how are these trucks, where we are backing onto this, 5-story building, yet alone maneuvering through, gosh forbid, what if there's 2 fires and they're both on the 5th story? Where do we have enough infrastructure for that as we keep building these higher rise apartments, shall we say? My third is, I understand that the traffic study is underway. I would like clarity on the process and timeline. When will the traffic study be completed? When will a decision be made following that study? And will impacted residents be given time to review the study and make written submissions or speak before any final decision is made? The fourth is the housing demand and evidence. And I don't know if I'll be very articulate with this, but I know that the developer's presentation mentions the major component replacement project, new local job opportunities, and a lack of local rental units have continued to sustain demand for different housing types in Port Elgin. I do agree with this and the growth, obviously, that Port Elgin is going through. However, the MCR project has been going on for 6 years. And it is hugely supported by local and out-of-town members of all the trades, my husband being one of them, engineers as well. In speaking on my husband's behalf, who's not here, who is in the trades and has been on the MCR project since the start, not once has he heard someone say they don't have a place to stay in Port Elgin, Kincardine, Point Clark, Paisley, surrounding area. So predominantly out of these out-of-town individuals that are predominantly the trades that are, doing this MCR project, they are here to make money and they go home where they are. So a lot of them, renting a room in a basement apartment or whatever is usually what they're after. So I don't know if that really is where we think that this influx of individuals needing these rental properties. Besides that, has the developer engaged directly with Bruce Power regarding projected workforce needs and housing demand? If so, what was concluded? What data, vacancy rates, or forecasting supports the need for this specific scale and type of development? Sorry, page 3. How many units are projected to be required in the near and medium term? How much of this need is genuinely affordable housing versus market rate rentals? Who is responsible for monitoring ongoing housing versus market rate rentals? And who is responsible for monitoring ongoing housing demand and validating the new developments aligning with it? I know that there is talk about Bruce C also, in the future, whatever, how many years that is down the road. And I don't know if this is, where we're kind of looking at Bruce Power being a support for these rentals and maybe not. But as far as I know, there's been talks more of that probably being an on-site construction island camp for those individuals. That is all that I have, and thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for that, Ms. Sutcliffe. So Ms. Sutcliffe had a few questions there that I'll just put to the appropriate folks. So the first one is with respect to the balcony projections. She mentions the 32-foot setback, and when you add in the balcony projections, that reduces the setback, as she said. So she asks if that's been considered and what the impact is. Maybe I can put that to the planner.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mayor Charbonneau. The zoning bylaw does have a section or provisions as it relates to what are called encroachments, and those would be things like air conditioning units, balconies, patios. And so it does provide a reference point for staff when looking at that.
Okay, the next question is with respect to fire safety. She asks if there's been a formal assessment of the capacity of the fire department. Will there be necessary upgrades? Who will bear the cost of those upgrades? Can I put that to you, Candace? Candace Ham.
Thank you. Through you, Ms. Charbonneau. The application has been circulated internally to our fire services department. And there are, as shown on the plans, different fire routes that are identified. And then through the building code, there are also regulations that would happen at the building permit stage. I can take the questions back to the fire chief and just confirm and get some responses to those questions.
Thank you. So next she asks about the traffic study process, its timeline, and I think the core of the question is, will residents have a chance to address the study once it's complete? The planner?
Yes, thank you through you, Chair. So the traffic study, once it is provided by Barry's Construction, will be posted on our website, and we can make the public aware of that.
Thank you. And the final set of questions was with respect to housing demand, the evidence for the need for this type of housing in the community. So what evidence is it that there's demand for these type of rental projects? Has the developer engaged with Bruce Power? How much what percentage needs to be affordable, et cetera, et cetera? I don't know, maybe I could put that to the proponent to answer, as he'll be the one who will have assessed this, Mr. Doyle.
Thank you, through Mr. Mayor. So that's a great question. And I can't remember your name, made some reference to MCR, which is obviously a big piece of, folks that rent to us. And and perhaps it's not MCR, perhaps it's just workers coming up. But it also, I think what's happened, and a lot of us have been in the community a long time, for years, folks have struggled to find places to live in that aren't working at Bruce Power. And what we've seen for what we're renting now is people in the food industry, people in the hotel industry, people that never had the opportunity to live in Saugeen Shores have somewhere to move now. So it's not just about Bruce Power workers. We're thankful they come. We're thankful for the business that they offer, but we also see a different segment of the workforce that is also looking for places to live. So we see that demand. We are, obviously I wouldn't be standing here asking for this if we didn't see the need. And we continue to see that as we're finishing our third building, and we're confident with the lease up. And no, I haven't engaged Bruce Power. I don't intend to. I have a pretty good handle on the market and feel confident with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so now next on my list I have, and I apologize for my, Johan is on. All right, so why don't we'll bring Johan in via Zoom.
Hi, good evening. Can I just get a mic check?
Yep, and we can hear you. The floor is yours, sir.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Mayor, acting chair, members of council. Thank you. My name is Johan van Dryden, and I'm speaking on behalf of some of the residents here that are in the neighborhood adjoining the proposed Blue Water development. The previous speakers have addressed our broader concerns. My remarks today will focus solely on the parking and the infrastructure implications. The proposed parking lot is not viable in Port Elgin. The applicant is proposing 1.1 parking spaces per residential unit. As we know, Port Elgin is a car-dependent community with limited transit. Even modest assumptions, such as 25 or 40% of households owning 2 vehicles, would create an immediate shortfall of 39 to 78 spaces on day one of occupancy. This is not a fringe scenario. It reflects how families in this town actually live. The proposal is far below the standards of comparable Ontario municipalities. Other towns facing similar growth pressures, such as Innisfil, Orillia, and Newmarket, require significantly higher parking ratios for developments of this scale. Those municipalities recognize that a project of this size, without adequate parking, creates long-term infrastructure strain that residents and our community pay for later. Overflow parking will create permanent safety and operational issues. If parking is insufficient within the site, overflow will spill onto our streets. In the summer, this congests traffic and reduces emergency access. In the winter, it becomes a very real operational problem. Our streets are narrow. Plows need space to maneuver, and cars parked on road effectively eliminate snow storage and removal. Once the development is built, there is no practical way to fix this. The municipality inherits the problem permanently. In closing, we support growth. We support development, but it must be responsible and fit within our infrastructure reality. We respectfully ask Council to deny or defer approval until the parking deficiencies are meaningfully addressed. Thank you for your time.
You. So next I have, and I apologize for my pronunciation, you'll correct me when you come up, it's Guillaume Lager.
Hi, good evening.
Good
So it's Guillaume Loger.
Guillaume, I apologize.
No problem. You are not the only one.
And I have a French name too, I have no excuse.
Yeah, oh, okay. So yes, my name is Guillaume Loger. I live at the 186 Stickle Street with my wife and my two kids of 5 and 6 years old. So we were really happy to come in Port Elgin, a small town, not like GTA, no big buildings, just small houses like the one we bought 2 years ago. And we discovered this project 2 months ago. So my family and I, we are fully opposed to this project. And I could ask some question to you about trust, or if I would pay less taxes if there is a big building behind my house, or about the road congestion, like said Johan. But for the sake of my time and of your time, I will focus only on the daylight impact of these buildings. So I reviewed the shade study, what we call shade study of Barry submitted by Barry. So I did not really understood the result. When you look at it, it's really interesting. It shows a 12 meters building, which is approximately the same as the one of 17 meters. So with this confusion, I took some time and I built my own shade study. So I am an engineer. I have a master's degree in mechanical engineer. I'm not a civil engineer, but I have enough background to review this type of analysis. So in my study is available for who wants it. I can give it to you. It's free. And also I'm accepting whatever the technical challenge on it. So I focus on one house of the Irving Street, is the one at the address 494 Irving Street. So based on my analysis, this house will lose approximately 70% of its daylight at 10 a.m. This house will lose 30% of its direct light at noon. This house will lose 47% of its daylight at 3 o'clock. And this house will lose more than 50% of its direct sunlight at 4:45 p.m. So what does it mean? 30% in a year, it's 6 months. During 6 months, this house we won't see the light anymore at 4:45. So such loss of light, of daylight, has a well-documented impact on the well-being, on the health, as said Frank, and thank you for bringing that. Thank Frank. And there is an impact on the mental health, such as depression. So I can also provide to you some scientific articles, if you want, to read it. What are the real impact on the health? So I have two questions, one for the developer. First, so what are your real results and what are your real conclusions regarding the daylight and the shading impact over a full year on the houses of Irving Street and Stickle Street? And my second question is to you, to the municipality. Are you prepared to sacrifice the well-being and the mental health of the residents of the Irving Street and the Stickle Street to build this 5-story building that does not comply with your current bylaw? That's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lodger. Moving. Okay, so next we have John van der Rijgen, who is online, sorry. We'll bring him in. Oh, that was Johan. Okay, I have John written here, which isn't right. Apologies for that. Okay, so that's the end of my list. So now I'll ask if there is anyone else here in the room who wishes to speak to council with respect to this application. Ma'am, come on up.
Sorry, I thought I had registered to be on the.
Okay, that's fine. If there's anybody I've missed, just come on up and state your name for the record, please. Thank you.
Okay, yes. Thank you, Mayor Charbonneau, for having us here this evening and for listening to our concerns. My name is Mary Jane Steele. My husband and I reside at 238 Stickle Street in Port Elgin. The planning application pertains to a parcel of land directly behind our house. The parcel of land, as you know, fronts onto the east side of Bruce Street, and it's directly to the west of our home. We do understand that the property is zoned as R42, which permits a variety of higher density housing, including lower rise apartment buildings, multi-unit dwellings, townhouse dwellings, and additional uses such as retirement homes or community centers. We feel strongly that the application to construct 3 large apartment buildings comprising 259 units is a development that is completely out of keeping with the current style of housing in the neighborhood. To date, all of the housing constructed on the abutting, adjacent, and nearby properties are single-family homes, either single homes or freehold row houses. Rather than apartment buildings, 5-story apartment buildings, townhouses, and/or stacked townhouses, or low-rise apartment buildings would at least be a more compatible fit in the existing neighborhood. If the amendment is approved, we also have concerns regarding increased traffic on Stickle Street, both north and south of Ivings Drive, on Ridge Street, on Ivings Drive, on Sunset Drive, and on Andrews Street. Until Bruce Street is extended both north and south, all of the above surrounding residential streets will endure greatly increased traffic flow. We have concerns regarding safety. These buildings will be built in close proximity to existing homes on Stickle Street and Ivings Drive. There will be no serious barrier to unauthorized access to the backyards of these homes. Noise and light intrusion. This is currently an extremely quiet neighborhood. It's home to many seniors and many young families. Surface parking for 100 cars and the outside security and lighting for the complex will definitely lead to loss of outdoor enjoyment for current homeowners. Sun shadow discrepancy, that's been discussed quite a bit this evening, but just obviously given the size discrepancy between the proposed buildings and the existing homes, there will be a loss of sun and natural light for existing homes with increased shadow. This again, yet again, will lead to loss of enjoyment of currently existing homeowners. Currently, as far as I can discern, there are 2 large 3 apartment building complexes that have been developed at the north end of Waterloo Street in Port Elgin. These buildings do not abut directly onto any single-family homes. They directly abut main roadways, Devonshire and Waterloo. They abut a commercial plaza, a for-profit institutional retirement home, and Northport Public School. As well, there are service roads that run behind the commercial plaza and the retirement home that separate the plaza and the retirement home from the apartment buildings. There will be no roadways or service roads separating the proposed Bruce Street apartment complex from the homes on Stickle and Ivings. A 1.83 meter fence, a few trees and shrubs will do very little to address current homeowner concerns regarding safety, noise and light intrusion, diminished privacy, and loss of enjoyment of our existing outdoor spaces. My husband and I oppose this application for relief from certain zoning provisions that apply to this site. We oppose the application for relief from maximal building height, which if granted will allow for the construction of 3 5-story buildings, which is a 46% increase in the overall total height of buildings currently permitted. We oppose the application for relief from the minimum lot area required for each building. On request, an average of 24.5% decrease in required lot area. If this application is approved, it will allow a complex to be built, which is entirely out of character with the surrounding area. The buildings will be squeezed into an unsuitable space directly adjacent to single-family homes. Existing residents of the neighborhood will lose enjoyment of their properties due to increased traffic, decreased safety, noise and light intrusion, diminished privacy, and a decrease in natural light. All of these factors will no doubt lead to diminished property values and resale possibilities, particularly for homeowners on the west side of Stickle Street and the south side of Ivings Drive, directly abutting the proposed building site. We are asking the council to please retain the character of the existing neighborhood.
Thank you very much. So the clerk has advised that I have another list here, so I'm just, I'll refer to that one here now. And I have 2 more names on that one. The first is Laurel McMillan. If you want to ask your question, please come up to the microphone, please, so folks online can hear you.
Actually, everything that I wanted to say has been said, but I do have a question in regards to the traffic study that's being currently done. Is that posted machine at the end of Ivings at Goddard right now? Are they counting cars or how is that done?
I can ask if anybody is aware. I don't know. Stu, do you have any information on what's going on with it? Folks are looking at me like they don't know. So I don't know. Maybe, I don't know.
Okay, that was my question because I just
Yeah.
noticed it was there recently, and my suggestion would be perhaps doing a traffic study in the summer when that Ridge Street is open. It would be very different than this time of year.
Maybe I could ask, and thank you very much for your comments. I'll ask maybe the proponent to come up and he can talk to us about, if he give us the information he knows about how they're undertaking the traffic study.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I was not aware that the traffic counters had been deployed yet. Wouldn't surprise me, but to Laurel's comment about the time of year, certainly different traffic counts are done and different metrics are used to make sure they take the peak periods from different times of the year to make sure those are all accounted for. So that'll be in the finalized traffic study. Again, I'm not sure if those are our traffic counters or perhaps some that the town has deployed for their traffic master plan, but that's what I know.
Okay, thank you. So the final name I have, and I think it is my final name this time, is Brent Freiberger. So Mr. Freiberger, when you're ready, sir.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having us, Council. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. There's been a lot said tonight, so I'm going to keep it brief and focused. My concern is specifically with regards to transportation infrastructure in this portion of town. I understand that development is important, and anyone on staff who knows me knows I am a big supporter of additional residential units, of intensification, of being able to provide additional housing. However, we need to ensure that it's done at a pace that the municipality's infrastructure can keep up with. I live at the corner of Stickle and Ivings at 294 Stickle Street. I moved there in 2016 when there was no development behind me, and the intersection there was very calm all day long. There was a couple vehicles going through, but it was all local traffic only. As development continued and Bruce Street became more of an auxiliary arterial and collector for the traffic, Sunset and Stickle have become the go-to route for a lot of vehicles that are trying to avoid the downtown. I cannot let my kids play on their bikes or do anything in the front yard because the amount of traffic on that street is very high. And people routinely are traveling at speeds that are unsafe, not abiding by the stop signs. And overall, I'm sure if you talk to any of the officers that do go out there to handle traffic infractions, that location is terrible for the people that live there. Now, to the point here, we're putting another 260 units. The only way that those units get out to Highway 21 is through the Stickland-Ivings intersection. That's a lot of vehicles every day. And we live in a car-dependent town. Bruce Street Extension was highlighted in the 2020 master plan as the #1 priority from Sunset to Bruce Road 25 to be completed within 5 years. That's this year. It has not been done. And all the traffic that should be collecting and properly distributing is going in front of my house and impacting my children and all the other families on my street that have young kids, and there's quite a few. Now, I understand that probably Barrie and the municipality are trying to determine who's going to pay for it, but that is a very important connecting link that needs to be completed. In the master plan, it also said that Ivings Street was supposed to be upgraded to a collector road from Bruce Street up to Highway 21. Anyone who's driven on that road knows it's not a collector. It's not wide enough. It has poor sight lines. It has a chicane partway up. Work needs to be done. And lastly, at the intersection of Ivings and 21, they're forecasting that in 2031, without this development, it was going to be a fail intersection in terms of traffic flow. And then it needed a 45-meter extension for the left turn lane. Now we're going to increase by another 80 vehicles at least. So my concern isn't necessarily specifically for the development in this location, but for the town and the developer to ensure that the infrastructure for my neighborhood is upgraded at a rate of buildings that are being built. And that I can't support a development if I can't safely walk my kids through my neighborhood. So I would encourage council and staff and Barrie's Construction to have that traffic study completed to look at both the condition now and once the work is done, so that we can ensure that we're not going to cause an unsafe situation for any of the residents. That's my concern, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so are there other members of the public who would like to speak? All right, you can speak one more time if you like.
Thank you. This is where I wanted to speak, is because there's so many great speakers. I don't have to say very much. One of the things is, and certainly that was a good talk about that. Ivings is, we have Bruce, which is great, moving us, and 21, moving us this way. We don't have any streets that moves us across this way. And on talking to people, that is, Ivings is the only way in and out. One of the things that you have the plan right now, there's a lot of changes, and Stu tried to address all those things and changed plans, and we reread them. If you look at the geology plan, it shows you the parcel of land across from this division towards the lake. It shows there an apartment block and a parking lot, and I counted the parking spots in that, and it kind of looked odd to me. It works out that if you use the same numbers of parking spots as this current this development does use, it would be another 320 dwellings on that piece of land. So we're not talking just actually 259. We're talking, when you look at it, and you certainly can look at it, it's online, and you can print it out, and it's part of your thing. We're talking actually 600 dwellings. And I know, Mr. Mayor, you do the coldest night of the year, and we look for housing. We try to find housing for people. These houses aren't. When you're talking about service workers, they're making minimum wage. And when you do, you can get on PODOC and see what they make, do 40 hours a week, look what they're going to take home. The rents, those 10 apartments, they would take up all of those. 1,000, 1,300 is where they can afford. And that is sometimes a stretch for them. They can't afford these apartment blocks that are being built. They really can't afford these apartment blocks. And when you're looking at this, please really seriously look at not just Bruce has to be built, but something has to be built across maybe a street further out south of town that cuts over to 21, and it flushes and focus this whole subdivision. If you're going to build it where they have a way to not only move north and south, but east and west. That's why I say the CAW road. It's a much bigger road. There is, with the proper setbacks there, we can certainly build that intersection bigger, and we can certainly build the intersection at 21 bigger. And it creates a way for them to get across to 21, to do their shopping, to do their living, to be a part of this community, and to really fit. You know, it's a lot. I also would say that a lot of, he's talking about housing here. If you're talking the 360 units at Mary Rose, you're talking West Links last week added on those apartment blocks there. We have low-income housing going in by us, which is awesome because we need those spots. We have so much housing to build, being built. I really think that as a town, we should look at studying what we really do need. Because there is no clear, somebody has, one of our group did actually spend a lot of time trying to figure out what the actual need is, to really quantify it and put a number and see if there actually is that demand there. There isn't a way to do that, to look at whether there actually is a demand. There's only a good, you know, he feels like that he's getting rentals right now. The buildings are full, great. But how do you know? You can't just go, you're making a huge investment and a huge change in our town based on just a feeling. Where are the numbers? And that's something that we have to do. And certainly you're going to do the coldest night of the year. Again, I hope. I can count on you, and maybe I can count on all you counselors to come out and raise some money for it. Those are the people we need to look for housing for. These are not even these houses that are being built, not just the location, but these houses being built wherever they're built don't meet that criteria. We need more housing like that, and housing that's attractive and they feel proud to live in and comfortable to live in. So I just think that, look at it, please look at the geology plan, please look at the plan. You will see that he's got there, but you'll see an apartment block across the street from it with a huge number of parking spots, and you'll look at the parking lot and say, why the heck do you have such a big parking lot there unless you're gonna possibly put up two more huge buildings? That makes it even bigger, a bigger monster when I saw that. And I only saw that last week in reviewing the documents again. So please look at this very carefully and look at the future. And please think beyond this. We've got a plan north-south. Let's talk about and think about a plan east-west to get from 21 to Bruce, because otherwise all we're doing is creating traffic that's going to be racing through downtown, across to get out of town, out towards West Links, or at other spots. And it doesn't work. It doesn't work for the people living there in the north part of town, in the middle part of town, or in the south part of town. We need to actually think about that as a future too. So I don't think I certainly hope that you go out to CAW Road, that he moves it, or he puts it closer to 21, that it fits and that people can live their lives there. Not only go to the plant or wherever they are to work, but to go shopping, to move easily within this town and safely within this town. All right?
Thank you, Mr. McTaggart. So is there anyone who hasn't spoken yet who would like to speak to council? Sir, go ahead. Please state your name for the record.
Keith Robertson. My mother-in-law lives at 222 Stickle, and I'll keep this short. Please remember, zoning bylaws exist to protect the land, the environment, people, and neighbors. And secondly, as Mr. Barry's is going to be putting tens of millions of dollars in his pockets, who's compensating the people behind me for their loss of the depreciation of the value of their house? That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who hasn't spoken yet? Yes, ma'am, come on up and state your name for the record, please.
Hi, my name is Norma Barber, and I moved to Port Elgin in 2008 and bought a single home right at 178 Stickle, where this apartment is proposed to go up, these apartments. And I'm very, very against it. I don't care about all your zones and your bylaws. There goes my privacy in my backyard where I live. What about the resale value of my single home? That's all I got to say. I'm just very upset.
Thank you. Anyone else who hasn't spoken yet wish to address council on this? What's this? Yeah, I can't hear people again. I apologize. I did, I agree, and it was my mistake. I want to hear from anybody who hasn't spoken yet. Is there anybody who hasn't spoken yet who wishes to speak to council on this subject? I don't see anybody. I'll ask if there's anybody, sorry to go back, are there any written submissions that were not already discussed in the planning report presentation or oral submissions?
There are not.
So I will now ask if council members have any questions before we close the public meeting and discuss the application. Are there questions from members? Councilor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I initially wanted to just follow up on a couple of questions that Karina answered that I wasn't clear on. One of the questions was, will the public have the opportunity to comment on the traffic study? Once it's completed, you said it would be available. Will they have the opportunity to comment on it?
Yes, thank you for the question. So we can receive public comments up until the point that a decision is rendered by this council. So most definitely the public can continue to provide comments.
Okay, thank you. The second one was in regard to the balcony and how much that encroaches into the setback. So just to clarify then, that encroachment is an example of something that's permitted. So the actual distance from the building to the lot line is measured from the main building itself, not the how far the encroachment goes. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. I have a couple of more questions, please. For Karina, so could you tell us to the best of your ability what the percentage of available apartments in Saugeen Shores is that are occupied or reserved for occupancy?
Yes, thank you for the question. So the data that I have available currently indicates that there's a 4.2% vacancy rate as of 2024 in Saugeen Shores, and that was based on data from the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation. I have put an inquiry out to our housing concierge office to see if they can provide some additional statistics specific to Saugeen Shores that may be a bit more up to date.
Okay. Now, this is also for Karina. I'm looking at your report, page 7, and this is in the, I think, first paragraph, where it talks about the fact that the 12 meter, which is currently permitted in our zoning bylaw, would be 3 to 4 stories, possibly. How could this height permit 4 stories? Maybe that's something that the developer would need to answer.
Thank you for the question. So I'll give it a first attempt. Generally, the rule is about 3 meters per story. So in this case, you could go up to 4 stories, but typically the first floor of an apartment building has a bit of a higher ceiling or can have a higher ceiling, which is why I provided the range of 3 to 4. But certainly I could defer to Barry's construction, to Stu Doyle, if he had more experience with that as-built condition.
Mr. Doyle?
Thank you for the question through you, Mr. Mayor. Certainly it would, we'd have to change our construction practices, likely the way that we heat and cool the building, but we could get a 4-story building with 40 feet, yes.
Okay, thank you. And in that same paragraph, it says that the increase of 17.5 meters is described as 5 stories, but there's a tilde punctuation mark in front of that, which it means approximately. Could it be 6 stories?
Thank you. From my experience, 5 stories would be, I think it's just over a percent of that.
So if the 12-meter height as the max in the zoning bylaw remained, would that continue to meet the medium density threshold if there were 3 12-meter buildings built?
Thank you, through you, Chair. So I can't necessarily answer that question. It would depend on the ultimate final design and the number of units per floor. So if Barry's Construction were to keep this current design, I would have to do the calculation to confirm.
Okay, further questions from members? The Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. One of my questions maybe is a Director of Development question. There's been an awful lot of comments, and very much I, like every other member up here, appreciates the public coming out to these meetings and offering perspectives that match some of what the way we think, and also give us additional information sometimes to consider. The Transportation Master Plan, when are we, because there was a lot of commenting about traffic counts and intersections and just traffic flows. When is that Transportation Master Plan expected? And when are still possibilities for public engagement surrounding that? I have more too, please, Mr. Mayor.
Sure. The Director of Development Services.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Their Transportation Master Plan is expected to be finalized in the first quarter of next year. And I do believe there's one more round of potential input from the public on a draft. That has not been released as of yet. Yeah.
So I would just encourage us all to give that a good look at it, and again, offer more thoughts. I wanted to also ask specifically, and one of the members, mentioned about when Bruce Street was expected to be built out. What is our current projection for Bruce Street to be built out all the way to the CAW Road? Is that in the near future, or is it still quite a few years out?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's a difficult one to answer because we've applied for a grant. So we've been holding off on putting that formally into the 10-year plan until we hear about the grant. But I think the plan is to have it in the 10-year plan as the grant provides for. Yeah. I don't have a specific year at this point.
Okay, thank you for that. A couple of other things. Some of the aspects that are a little bit problematic to many people relate to items that we no longer have much control over. The situation with the number of parking spaces, my understanding is that was something that came from the province. Am I correct when we got that changed? Because I've spoken many times in ways very similar to what we heard from members of the public about how, we're building buildings that we don't necessarily, I don't believe anyway, have enough parking spaces, and we are pushing people out to the street. But it's my understanding that was determined from another jurisdiction. Am I correct in assuming that?
Thank you, through you, Mayor Charbonneau. So the change to the parking standards was a housekeeping amendment to the town zoning bylaw in 2024. And that was based on review of other comparable municipalities. Off the top of my head, I apologize, I don't recall what those municipalities were. But the rate was changed. I believe it was from 1.25 per unit. So 1 space per unit plus 1 space for every 4 for visitor purposes, and that was changed to 1 in 8.
Thank you for that. I echo the concern about the number of parking spaces that are being created with residential units that we heard a lot about. Also, changes, somebody mentioned about, I can't remember, I wrote it down because I thought it was a good quote, that, we should pay attention to zoning bylaws and honor what's been there. Unfortunately, change has come even with what the zoning bylaws even include anymore. So I just hope that going forward, sometimes when we talk about a zone, there's R2 and R3 abutting this property, but R2 and R3 now have expanded opportunities on them too, coming from the province. And unfortunately, that's a reality that we all have to live with. My last question really is maybe for Candace. This project would be eventually subject to site control. That's correct, right?
Yes, thank you for the question. That's correct.
So the comments that were raised about, and I respect the comments about privacy, the outside lighting on a building, that would be part of a site plan control situation. I'm assuming that, we have some desirability about night sky stuff, which affects larger parking areas, which, the way that the light is expected to flow downwards and that sort of thing. Do we have any regulations or any guidance related to lights on buildings when they're higher than say 2 stories?
Thank you for the question. Through you, Mayor Charbonneau. In general, our development guidelines speak to lighting for developments. So there are guidelines that we could refer to there. There's a couple of different opportunities through the subdivision agreement and the conditions of draft approval for the subdivision, which already exists for this development. There's requirements for there to be dark sky compliant lighting for the sites. And then through the site plan control process, we can also typically require a photometrics plan to be submitted by the developer to indicate how the lighting will be proposed on the site and to minimize impacts to the adjacent residential areas.
Councillor Halpin and then Davinsky.
I'm going to pass. Mine as a comment, not a question.
Okay, questions from Councillor Davinsky?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to Stu Doyle. Stu, can Barry's Construction make a go of it by building only town homes in this affected area?
Mr. Doyle?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you for the question. Our current draft plans that we have here and in other areas of town already include quite a few townhouse lots. We're seeing the market shift, as I've said, away from traditional home ownership. Not to say that it won't return, in a few years, I don't know. But we're seeing that there's a greater need for different types of housing, different tenures, different types of ownership. So, sorry. So yeah, that's what we're seeing. That's why we see this R4 land as an opportunity for different intensification and different types of permitted types of building.
If I may. So if that's the case, couldn't these townhomes be rental units in this particular development at this point?
I'm sure we could, sorry again, through you, Mr. Mayor, anything is possible. However, rental townhouse units generally do not come with a price tag that is generally doable for us or for renters.
Again, through you, Mr. Mayor, you have indicated that you could consider 5 stories being reduced to 4 stories. Could that 4 stories be reduced to 3? Would that still work for your plan?
In all honesty, no.
All right. And again, through you, Mr. Mayor, the plan we have here right now is for 3 buildings. can that be reduced to 2 and thus reconfigured to go away, to get away from the existing townhomes that border Ivings Drive and Stickle Street? Is that a possibility?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, like I said when I started, I'm here to hear comments from the public, from council, and go back and look at what we can do. I mean, I'm not saying anything's set in stone. This is an application, this is a proposal, and I'm happy to work with council and the public and staff. I obviously have to make the development viable. I have to be able to make it pay for himself. I have to be able to get funding, and to do that, I have to make sure it's going to pay for itself. So there's lots of things at play. I have to balance that as well as you guys, council. So I'm willing to sit down with staff and look at options. Absolutely, I am.
Okay, thank you, Stu, and thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I have the Vice Deputy Mayor, then Councillor Mayette.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I just, first of all, I wanted to thank all the residents on Ivings Drive and Stickle for all of your submissions. I read them all, and thank you for being here tonight. And I know that you people are very upset, you know, and I do understand. And we have a situation in Saugeen Shores where we do need additional rental units. We do need, you know, affordable housing units. So, you know, you're caught between a rock and a hard place, right? Where does this development go? And you know, I listened to one person, I said back in 2008, you know, 178 Stickle. And I dare say that all of you residents here tonight, dating back to 2008 up to today, from what I understand, talking to a few of you and reading your submissions, that you really had no idea that maybe an apartment building in behind your units. I see a lot of heads nodding, and I believe that. I trust you with that. I trust that you weren't aware of that, and some people say, well, buyer beware, when you got a field in behind you, you know, you know, you need to check the zoning. And I look at real estate agents today and thinking, how much of that information do they divulge when making that almighty sale, you know, to people? And we were told that it was in our 4.2 on it, you know. So I think I do understand your concerns, and I guess I have a couple questions, a couple more comments, but to the developer, Stu, that land is 26 hectares, 64 acres. Was that the total piece of property that you purchased? When was that land purchased? Can I ask that question of the developer? And was it 64 acres? Am I correct?
Mr. Doyle.
Through Mr. Mayor, I apologize. I don't have the numbers for the size of the property, but we did buy that in 2016, if my memory's correct.
Okay. What size is this in hectares wise? This development with 3 proposed 5-story buildings?
So just for clarification.
Yeah, I'd just like to know the measurements of that.
Through
You
Mr.
have
Mayor.
64 acres. I just wondering what size that parcel is.
So just for clarification, we're speaking of the subject property or the overall development?
I'm talking about the one that you're proposing for the rezoning application for the 3 5-story buildings.
I think if my math is correct, it would be close to 2 hectares.
2 hectares?
Does that make sense?
Right. Is it fair to say that half of your development's developed now out of the 64 acres? You guys maybe half left. Stu, would that be? I mean, I drive through that area a lot, and just wondering, would you have half of your lands left to be developed, do you think?
I would say,
No.
possibly.
Yeah.
Could be.
I guess the comment I wanted to make was, and this isn't, I'm not trying to gaslight. I just really want to be understanding of the residents and their concerns about the character of the neighborhood and what kind of neighborhoods we're trying to build in Saugeen Shores and low density versus medium versus high. And I take a look at the Waterloo development, 255 units was a great development, and this passed unanimously around this table. And what you did, you built those 255 units. People know there's going to be apartment units there, and now you're starting to build housing around it. So people are very much aware when they're buying the unit, you know, that there's 3 apartment buildings already built. And I'm just wondering, was there any consideration at all to starting on the lands west of Bruce Street. Was that ever considered when you're thinking about putting up buildings and then building housing around it? Similar to what you did in Waterloo Street. Did you ever think about that?
Certainly we, sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, certainly we have other development lands. This particular property, as I've indicated, we like to develop out, go from what's built and work our way out. And it's a piece that's there. And, I'm not looking to avoid, a piece of property just because it's easy. I think that housing, new types of housing is not going to be easy moving forward. There's only so many pieces in town that are undeveloped. There's only so many pieces in town that, aren't going to be beside somebody. And those aren't ready. Those aren't anywhere near ready at this point. And, as we go ahead and we do new subdivisions, certainly that's something that council requests us to do. Let's put apartments in, let's get the density up. This is obviously a legacy subdivision that included some of that R4 land. And at some point, as we invest money in these lands, we have to develop it. That's how we stay in business. Yeah. So I'm not, not to sound flippant, but I'm not gonna, just work like a chessboard or checkers and hop over things. I want to do something good here. I want to develop something, and hearing what the neighbors say is really important. And like I said, I'm committed to looking at it, but it's this piece is a development piece of property in the development land, and at some point we have to deal with it and use it.
And you're right about this council supporting high density. I mean, 2 blocks off of Godry Street, we've said, we're going to promote 5-story buildings, and I was very much in support of that. And with your development on Waterloo Street, I was the first one to put my hand up to support it. And now you're building housing around it because people know the units are there. And I just, high density, medium to high density, being built in an area where people built dating back to 2008, really thinking that there may be some semis or some single family or lower density units. As a member of council, I have to, you have to take that into consideration that these people, right, they're residents who we're speaking on behalf of too. There's got to be some understanding of the fact that they really genuinely felt when they bought from Barry's, none of the people I spoke to thought there would ever be a 3-story, let alone 5-story building. What I'm hearing today, you'd be going from 39 feet, 4 inches up to 55 feet, potentially going from a 3. I think you legitimately with the current zoning, you can build 4, right? You could start with a building permit. You could start this spring with a 4-story building, really, is what I'm hearing. And you want to go to 5. So I just want to say, Mr. Mayor, I understand the concerns, but I also caught between a rock and a hard place. Like we're looking for more rental units. We're trying to drive that price of rentals down. I did have one last question, Mary. Did you mention, Stu, about when you referenced the 9-meter setback? Were you referencing the Mary Rose subdivision apartment units, those 350 units that were proposed at Mary Rose? Is that what you were referring to about the 9-meter setback?
Through Mr. Mayor, I was referencing the existing, I think it's whatever schedule that is in the zoning bylaw, which is 9 meters, as well as the Mary Rose subdivision, which includes the identical language with the 17.5 at 9 meters.
So just since you raised Mary Rose, one thing I really did like, it was at this council table, and I know that that development did fall through, which is unfortunate, 350 units. They did flip they had a big piece of property, and they were able to do a lot. They flipped their units, a lot more buffering, a lot more setback from the backyards of residents. There's the pathways and the gardens, and there was a lot of greenery. And so my last comment was, I just think that we as a council, well, me as Vice Deputy Mayor, member of council, I'm just concerned about the type of what kind of neighborhood are we building in Saugeen Shores, and I've mentioned that to you in the past. Like there has to be an environment where there's in my view, lots of green, lots of landscaping, that it's inviting to the community, where they step out their front door and they're walking out into some green space. And we're going to have that at the Blue Water Lands, by the way, 7-8 acres, 2 acres. I go by acres still, but 2 acres will be parkland. outdoor skating rink, some gardens, some walking paths. And I know it's a different situation. You're a private developer, it's town land. But I think that the type of neighborhood where we should be, need to be building is something that is pleasing, environmentally nice with green space. And to me, you know, the 5-story is, it creates a lot less greenery. That's all I wanted to comment on.
Yeah, thank you. So we'll get Councillor Mayette, then staff, and we'll get questions, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And through you, I think I've counted 4 questions, if I may. The first one is back in July, I guess, and this is maybe to Barry or to Stu. Sorry. You applied for a severance on the lot to make 3 distinct properties as opposed to 1. What was the purpose of that severance? Instead of putting 3 apartment buildings on 1 lot, you want them each on their own lot?
Essentially, short answer, it's strictly for CMHC financing.
I see, okay.
That's it.
So you could sell one as, yeah.
Well, I mean, through you, Mr. Merritt, in all honesty, it's not in case we want to sell them, it's in case they want to. They want a clean title on separate pieces of property.
I don't think there's a tax advantage to doing that.
Nope.
No, probably pay more property taxes on 3 lots.
And it would be easier for us not to do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
While you're at the mic, either. The balcony, the building that's in contention is really the north building. That seems to be the one that is has got the most attention. Is it proposed that the balconies would be on the north side of the building or on the south side of the building?
Through Mr. Mayor, it would be both sides.
Both sides?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so that leads me to the shadow study. The shadow study that was included was done on or about the equinox in September. And the sun's pretty high at that point. And so the shadows are a calculation of building height, setback, and angle of the sun. So I would think that if you did that study at this time of year, when we're getting close to the solstice, I'd like to see, because we've seen shadow studies before that show at 4 different times a year. And so you can, because I believe what the concern is the shadow during this time of year. I think it shows that in the summertime you will get sun because the sun's much higher in the sky, but right now the sun's pretty low in the south. So is there any chance that there is more to the shadow study than was presented?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think, and I might be wrong, the planner may help us here. I think there's a full copy of the sun study, which includes the winter solstice, summer solstice, and September on the county website. Which includes all 3.
On the county,
Yeah.
okay. I'm just looking at the one that's on here. The current layout of the proposal shows, once again, with the northern building, the parking is on the south of the building, and the building is at the northern end. Is there any reason why you couldn't put the parking on the north side and move the building back 10 or 15 meters to accommodate parking on the north side as opposed on the south side, and allow further back, which, going back to the shadow study, would bring them outside of the shadow area and give a nice wide buffer?
Yeah. And through you, Mr. Mayor, again, I've said I'm happy to sit down and look at options. The layout of what I proposed is a functional layout. We've used it. Other places have used it. You'll see that in other communities because it works well. But I'm happy to look at different options to see how we can make it work.
Yeah, it seems to me it's like a jigsaw puzzle. You have to fit everything in, but it would be interesting to see a draft that has a different concept like that.
Yep.
That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stack.
Thanks. Just a couple of questions. I think, Candace, probably for you. Are barrier-free units the ones for which the development fees are waived if there's a certain number of barrier-free units? Are those the same as universal design?
Thank you for the question. So I think what you're referring to is that under our current development charges bylaw, that there are certain exemptions for developments that meet certain criteria. We haven't gotten into those discussions yet, to be honest. We're at the early sort of planning stages, and those typically are calculated out a little bit later in the process. Um, Perhaps the applicant can advise whether or not elevators will be included or whether or not the ground floor units will be fully accessible. But yes, to answer your question, currently to meet the accessibility standards, it is units that meet universal design. And as long as 20% of those units are accessible, then they would be exempt from the development charges.
Sorry, and just to clarify, so 19 of, I think 91 are the first phase, so that would hit the target. Just to be clear, when you say, I think I've had this discussion before, but when we say accessible, just to be clear, do we mean fully accessible or they could be retrofitted to be accessible? I'm always a bit confused by that.
Thank you for the question. So I believe it's the universal design as per the building code. So um, certain construction practices are required, but it's not a very extensive what's required.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, if there's a construction with the breakdown of units as possible, the builder will likely result in not paying development charges for at least phase one. I can't speak to the multiple phases, but is that a fair conclusion?
I would say it's quite possible, but those decisions would be made later on.
Sorry, if I could ask a question for the developer. I don't know when you're talking CMHC, the 10 affordable units, is that meeting the requirements for preferential financing for the construction?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so the MLI Select through CMHC is a point system, and it's based on affordability, accessibility, and energy efficiency. So based on a combination of those three factors, then there's different levels of financing fees that apply. Yes.
Okay, so just to maybe answer my question more directly, the goal here is to get preferential financing on the construction.
The goal is to get financing so that we can build apartments, yes.
Okay, so the only reason I raised that is because you had made the comment earlier that the only way you can make this like profitable is, I think the phrasing we should be using, is to construct, sounds like a 5-story, but I just think it's worth noting that there are a few options here that are presented, at least from the town's perspective, to support affordability. Because I would argue that universal design is not a particularly high bar to meet. So I just wanted to be, do you disagree that there at least are some benefits being provided to the developer to construct this unit as you've presented here?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think Saugeen Shores is a great place to work. That's why we're here. You know, you guys have good policies. The development charges policy, it's not unique, but it's great to work with. So yeah, we love investing in Saugeen Shores. There's no doubt.
Oh, I'll just make sure I get everybody who hasn't spoken yet. Councillor Halpin, I think I had one. Councillor Halpin.
No, I just have some comments. I'm not
I thought
gonna
you
try to
had your hand
argue
up
them.
for a question, so I'll now return to folks so I'll start with the deputy mayor and then come back to I'll go back around the same direction I went. Deputy Mayor Davinsky, Vice Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, and through you, I appreciate Councillor Stack bringing up, universal design. That's been one of my questions over the last couple months too here. This is a question for Stuart, and I also want to echo what Councillor Mayette said about, the potential to shift the location of one of the buildings and put the parking where it provides more space, which is not an ideal buffer, but it still is a buffering feature. But a question for Mr. Doyle. In the midst of the report, there was an indication that the intended build was a modular building with a Bruce County company. I'm really intrigued by that. Is this a company that already has some projects here or elsewhere in Bruce County, or is this the first time that they're going to be in our community? And because I think that aspect of this, in the end, of course, the design is not carved in stone yet, as you said, but this you can't get much more local than Bruce County. So I'm curious about the modular company that's right here in Bruce County, have they done any other work in Saugeen Shores yet? Or is there some other project in the county that, we can sort of see what their stuff looks like?
Mr. Doyle?
Yeah, through Mr. Mayor, it's the same company that we did Northport with. I think there's a gentleman here that actually works with them in Chepstow. So they fabricate everything in Chepstow and then ship it up our way. I know they've done other buildings in Saugeen Shores, Paisley. I think they're actually doing one in Owen Sound right now. So yeah, they're a great company to work with. They're based out of Kitchener, just to be clear, but they're manufacturing plants in Chepstow. Yep.
Further questions, Councillor Davinsky?
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, I thought we were going for comments. I'll hold off.
Okay, thank you. Another question, the Vice Deputy Mayor, and then Councillor Grace.
Yeah, just a quick follow-up. Could I ask Mr. Mayor of the planner or the developer, but I really would like, at some point, an email sent to council about, I'd like to know what the square meters of the lot on Waterloo Street that has already been built out, the 3 units versus this parcel of land that we're proposing 3 5-story buildings. I like to get that measurement for those 2 parcels of land sometime. If you don't have it tonight, I would like to get that before the next meeting. And the other question, the last question I had for the planner, the R42 zoning, I've heard 2016 tonight, but I also heard 2006, 2010, somewhere I read it or someone said that to me. The R42 zoning, how long has that been on that piece of property? Can you get that to me if you don't have it tonight? But I'd like to know if it was before when did it go on? When was that applied, that R42 zoning? I like to have that information if I could. So can I get that?
The planner?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mayor Charbonneau. I can certainly get that information, but based on my review of the archive, I believe it was around 2006, 2007.
Okay, yeah. Oops, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, 2006. So was a reference tonight, maybe I'm mixed up here then. What was the reference tonight to 2016, sorry?
Planner?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I can clarify. So when the draft plan of subdivision, this current draft plan that's in effect was approved in 2016, that was the R42 zone was in effect at that time. But based on review of older bylaws, it does appear that the R42 was in place in that area prior to that.
Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have another question that I forgot to ask that's for Stu. And it's about your comment about the amenity space and that it's increased over, it's 27 square meters per unit. Is that right? As opposed to the 17 on the other development. What is included in that amenity space definition? Does that include parking spaces?
Through Mr. Mayor, Candace probably knows this answer better than I do, but it doesn't include asphalt. It includes walkways and grassed areas. I think that's the extent of it.
Okay, are there any further questions from council? I had a question that I wanted to ask. I was interested in reading the submission from the town of Saugeen Shores and the comments with respect to lot area. And there's the line at the end of that quote, the town staff question the appropriateness of the requested reduction and have concerns with the lack of amenity space proposed. And you had mentioned, Mr. Doyle, and it's been raised by some of my colleagues already, the development over on Mary Rose. And it's interesting when you look at that, and I looked it up, just have it in front of me here, the site plan for it. And that development included 2 gardens, outdoor amenity space, sports courts, a dog run, playground, a lot of outdoor amenity space, like a lot. And I just wonder, so with the town has identified it as an issue, even the comparisons you're drawing on show it as something that was very important in that development. Do you, like, I appreciate you're here to hear these comments and to hear from folks, and you've heard this, you've had a chance to read the town submission, so you were aware that this was an issue. Do you have some concept of how you can get more amenity space into this development? Because I think, the town's identified it as an issue, and it certainly shows up as a big deficiency. So do you have any comments on your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think it's certainly something that we can look at. Again, I'm struggling a bit with the apples and oranges comparison that I'm working with. Like I said before, had this application been reviewed as previously, and again, I'm okay with change. We're working with it and rolling with it. I would not be applying for a reduction in landscape open space. So when I compare what we've did north of town and south of town, it's very different. We have a lot more open space at the proposal than we have in the past. But moving forward, I think I'd also say about the Mary Rose subdivision, looks great, lots of amenity space. It's a cornfield. There's no one building anything there right now. And, I think we've shown that when we apply for stuff and we're looking to do, we follow through, we get things done. And I feel that's because, I don't know the other, anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm happy to look at it and do what we can.
Okay. And the other thing that they did at Mary Rose, which was interesting, and you raised it, it's not really an apples to oranges thing, because, you raised them, so I'm going to take them as apples to apples. It was that they, in order to create that transition from the housing on Mary Rose away from those buildings, they actually they proposed lower buildings closer to the development, and then had their took the taller buildings and put them away from those existing, they kind of pushed it back in terms of the design, like in terms of a redesign of the site, like, is that another option that you can consider? I think maybe it's been got at in other questions here, but I just wanted to put it in the context of that Mary Rose development that you raised, because it was something that they tried to do there.
Yeah, no, great point. And again, happy to look at it at the Mary Rose site. The transition they used was a 5-story building adjacent to the single-family homes, and a 6-story building away from the single-family homes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you for that. Are there any other questions from members? If there are no further questions, then I will now declare the public meeting to be closed. And I have a recommendation which I will read. The recommendation is that minor revision to draft plan of subdivision 41T-2016-02.46 and zoning bylaw amendment Z-2025-047 Blue Water by Barry's Construction and Insulation Limited be received for information. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Mayette. Are there comments from members? Councillor Helpin and then Davinsky.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. And I'd also like to thank all the public that came out to speak tonight. And I've read your comments and talked to people on the phone and stuff like that. My comment, just let me get it up here, is that, like, I really believe in density, and density is an important way for us to preserve farmland, wooded areas, et cetera, like that. And in our plan, some people don't like density. They want it to remain the small town and everything like that. But for density, we agreed that apartment buildings would be in that corridor off of Highway 21, correct? Like if someone wanted to build a 6-unit on Highway 21, that's in our plan to do that. And then moving from that corridor was to the 3-story buildings, and then moving from there to townhouses and other. And I think if we change that now and say, yeah, we said that we could put high rises in that corridor, but now we're going to put them way down on Bruce Street, I think we'll lose faith in the public, or the public will lose faith in us. The other thing is, what frustrated me, one of the things before I was on council, is that we constantly gave away the 30% green space. And this council has really been firm about the 30% green space. And I will continue to be very firm about the 30% green space. 30% is 30%. It's not 25%. And if this applicant wanted to build a building at 12 meters on that site, I wouldn't oppose it because it's zoned for that. I wouldn't oppose it. Okay, so those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Vinsky.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. When a person buys a home, single home or townhouse, semi, they are entitled to what it's called, or what I've heard called, quality of living. In this case, I fear that quality of living will be overcome by a 5-story apartment building affecting homes on Ivings Drive and Stickle Street. I have visited one of the homes on Ivings Drive, and the parking and actual building will be mere meters from these homes, invading the privacy of the homeowners, many of whom purchased on good faith that low to medium density townhomes would be constructed on the vacant field behind them. The owners knew there would be development in what is now a cornfield, but no one realized it would be a 5-story apartment building. I know the municipality needs additional living spaces, but certainly not at the expense of homeowners already in the area. The backyards of the residents on Ivings Drive are small, and residents have concerns about the towering apartments where apartment dwellers could peer into backyards and even homes simply by looking out their windows. I am a great supporter of the work done by Barry's Construction throughout Saugeen Shores, but I believe this project needs to be revisited. Those living on Ivings Drive and Stickle Street deserve at least that.
Thank you. Further comments from members? Before we, Councilor Stack.
think, so I have visited, I think, two or three homes on Ivings Drives in anticipation of this meeting. I think I was pretty direct with my feedback that I wasn't in support of this I mean, a fairly straightforward reason, many of which have been articulated. I think, you know, and I've made this comment before, we have zoning bylaws, we put them in place. I think I'm not overly sympathetic when people buy homes and then they don't like when there's a development going behind that's obvious. But in this case, to be fair, you know, what is it, 12 meters and 17 meters is a difference. You buy land, you know what you're buying. And I think I've made this comment before that I'm not clear why we have zoning bylaws if we're constantly making exceptions when a developer comes. And I think we expect people to have obviously to have buyer beware when they buy a property, but so too do developers when they come and buy a property. They make an investment, and to some extent, you take a risk, you make a calculus. Yes, the market has changed, but that doesn't mean that we have to concede on that point. So I think, you know, and I've made the comment to the folks that I'd visited, if this was, and I think as the other counselor noted, if this was compliant with the zoning bylaw, we'd have to accept it. I think that's been my position anytime we have a development in front of us. But when we're asking for a fairly sizable variance to manage the investment decisions of a developer, I take issue with that, and I'm not really prepared to make exceptions in this case, particularly if you do go look in these residents' backyards. I mean, it is close, and I think close that's probably not descriptive enough. It is like, I have a very poor baseball arm, and I could readily throw a baseball to the other side. So I think, you know, I make that comment just to say, like, we have to be reasonable when we make these concessions. And I think having a developer come here and say, look, I can't make this work, well, frankly, that's not our problem.
Thank you. Councilor Mayette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. I appreciate all of the public coming out here today. It's really good to see the level of engagement over this, and I've had the opportunity to speak with several of you personally, and I've read the comments. And so the motion on the floor here is to accept this report for information. So we're not deciding yay or nay on this today. We're simply accepting it. It gives us an opportunity to hear from the public. It gives us an opportunity for the developer to hear from the public. It gives us an opportunity to ask questions for clarification, but by no means are we making a decision or giving opinion. We shouldn't be expressing opinion on this. It's simply for clarification, and at a future date, we will be asked to make a decision on this. So I'm glad to, a lot of clarification has been made here tonight, both by the speakers and by the developer and by the planners. So I want to thank everybody for that. This is in Saugeen Ward, and this is one of the biggest developments that we've seen in my ward. And so I'm keenly interested to make sure that the outcome of this satisfies everybody. And so I'm looking forward to what transpires next. I think that the developer is here today and he's listened, and I've spoken to him personally about this, and he wants to do the right thing as well. He doesn't want to smear the name of his corporation. He's got a good reputation. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing where this goes. And I'm hopeful that that everybody will be satisfied. And I'm looking forward to seeing you all here in a couple of months when this comes back for the approval portion. Thank you.
Thank you. The Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just, while people were talking, I looked up in the zoning bylaw some other items related to R2 and R3. I really encourage people to understand what's even possible on your own lot. And I very much respect the idea of character and building to fit a neighborhood, but R2, which many of the folks in the audience, I think, live in an R2 zone, the building height maximum on an R2 lot is 10 meters high. 12 meters is, what's possible in R4, but on an R2 lot, it's 10 meters. Also, a fourplex is possible on a lot in an R2 zone now. So it's really important that, you stay abreast of what could happen even on your own street, and as well as pay attention to what's happening in the neighborhood. It is, it's a different kind of thing now than when we first created zoning, because I've spoken often here about the investments that people have made in property and how we have a responsibility to take into account as much as possible protecting those investments. Most of us here own property here. At the moment I'm renting, but I do own a vacant lot myself. But it's the world is a little different now with development. So I respect what Barry's Construction has done to pivot in the last little while and create more rental units here. And no, the rents aren't, what we all would potentially like them to be, to address a very real need in our community, as was mentioned tonight. But I do think, and I used to feel when the mayor talked about quantity was important to help us influence the market. I used to think, well, no, more is not going to make a difference. I do think more is starting to make a difference with the price of rentals here. And I do think that we've priced ourselves out of house ownership here for a lot of people, kids who want to come back or people who want to move here. And so the rental options have to be there for them. I do respect, though, a lot of the comments that came in about privacy and that sort of thing. So I do think that Mr. Doyle has heard all of that. And, we also have to appreciate that he's a developer here who's trying to contribute to the growth of the community in a meaningful way. And I think they have pivoted in some parts of the community to build what we were looking for to help with the situation. And I think they'll pivot further as they go forward. I respect what my colleague next to me said about our comments about where we wanted higher density. We also did many years ago, and we continue to try and encourage larger scale developments on collector roads. Bruce Street is not built out yet, but it is deemed in all of the planning documents I've seen in all the years I've been here, it is deemed to be a collector road. And so, we have spoken to encouraging density in that regard too. I do, though, very much respect all of the contributions of the public, and I look forward to seeing the next reiteration the concept, because I do think that we've all heard what you've said. But I do encourage you to look at what's possible on your own lot and on your neighbor's lot. And just, know that someone could come in, knock down a single-story house, build something 10 meters high, and it could be a fourplex right next to you. That's what's possible now in zoning. And some of it is decisions we've made, but some of it is also from directions from the province. But this has been a great public meeting, so I'll just leave my thoughts there. Thank you.
Thank you. So we will have to move on now. I just want to say thank you once again to everybody who came out this evening and expressing your views, and all the members for your views. We have a recommendation before us now to receive this for information. So what that means is that there'll be a report come back to council at some point with this development, with a recommendation on this development. I would say it's pretty clear to me, just listening to my colleagues, that a lot of work is going to need to be done on this thing if it has any hope of passing. I suspect as it stands now, just counting the votes, it probably won't. So I think some work, a fair bit of work will need to be done by the developer, working with town staff and planning staff to come back to us with something that council could accept. I think council cares a great deal about what it hears from the public. We've heard a lot of concern from the public. A lot of it, that concern is pretty legitimate sounding. And so we're going to have those issues addressed, I think, before we can have something that council is going to be able to endorse. On the same note, we are keen in this town to build rental housing and all types of housing in all aspects so that we can make sure that anybody who wants to can find a place to live in Saugeen Shores. So we're looking to accommodate some higher density development while also accommodating folks who live next to those developments. So as I say, some work needs to be done on this one, I think, but for the moment, we have a recommendation to receive this for information. It's been moved and seconded, so I'll ask all in favor of that. That's carried. Thank you. All right, so now we're moving on to item 7.1, which is a consent for consent B 2024-086 for Taylor, and we'll turn that over to the planner, Karina Smith, for the presentation. The clerk had to step out, so we'll just pause right now till we'll reconvene at 9 o'clock. Okay, so we're going to reconvene this meeting, and we're on to 7.1, which is consent B-2024-086 for Taylor, and we'll turn that to the planner.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Charbonneau. So this application is before you tonight. It is for a severance or a consent application to facilitate a vacant residential lot to be severed off of an existing property that does have a single detached dwelling. If approved, the application would facilitate a vacant lot that could be used for another single detached dwelling. The purpose of the application and why it's before you this evening is that the county staff have recommended some conditions that apply to this application. And specifically, there is a recommendation that there be a development agreement entered into between the town of Saugeen Shores and the applicant for on-site wastewater treatment. Staff have recommended that that item be brought forward to this council for consideration. And I'll end it there and turn it back to you.
Thank you. So there is a resolution that town staff be authorized to sign the request for verification attached for consent B-2024-086 for Taylor and return the same to the county of Bruce. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Grace, seconded by Halpin. Discussion. Councillor Mayat.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the consent we're giving is for verification that the septic system will be compliant for the area of the lot. Is that correct?
So the condition would require the town and the applicant to enter into an agreement to provide that tertiary septic in perpetuity.
Can you describe exactly what is a tertiary septic system? I understand regular septic systems. I have one myself, but I'm not sure what it seems a pre-treatment of some sort.
Yes, thank you through you, Mayor. I'm also not an expert on septic systems, but it is my understanding it's a pre-treatment, so an advanced septic system that does provide additional dilution.
Councillor Halpin.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. This maintaining these agreements, is this something new? Like, I don't really recall seeing this before, and I asked a couple questions about it, and is it kind of an unfair burden to the town for doing this?
The planner.
Yes, thank you through you, Mayor Charbonneau. So we have seen the use of development agreements for various purposes. There was a report brought forward by my manager, Monica Morrison, a couple of months ago, speaking to when and how development agreements could be used. And this was one of the examples that had been outlined. We've been given an indication from the province that the use of zoning for this purpose would no longer be applicable because it does I guess, contravene other sections. And so we're recommending a development agreement in this case as opposed to zoning.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. But so do we have a choice about whether we enter into these agreements?
Yes, council always has a choice. It's council's decision. I might just make a comment about this one. I have difficulty with this one. I won't be supporting the resolution. What we have here is a conflict between the building code and the zoning bylaw. And the legislature of Ontario has been very clear in this scenario. It says, and it's written right in this report, when a difference like that arises, the building code will supersede the zoning. The building code takes precedence. The province of Ontario has determined that they're going to regulate septics through the building code and the way they regulate them. The rules are the rules, and all of this that we're going through here is in this effort to get around that regulation. The province has even said that we can't try to regulate this through zoning because they don't want us to regulate this. And here we are, we're going around trying every possible way to come up with, to impose this regulation that just doesn't conform, doesn't comply with the code. So in my view, we should just let the code, the building code's a good document. It's about 12 feet tall. It regulates everything, and it does a good enough job regulating septic. As far as I'm concerned, we should allow the code to stand, and we shouldn't try to impose this condition because the code is good enough. So, you know, as far as I'm concerned, we don't need to go through all of this, create this new agreement that imposes a additional regulation that we have to administer in perpetuity, that imposes this burden on the landowner and the municipality that is probably unenforceable or will be very difficult to enforce, all to try to sneak around the building code, which is doing a fine job regulating septics. So, so I won't be supporting this. And my understanding is that if council doesn't support this, then the entire consent will have to go to Bruce County Council for a decision on how to deal with this condition of the consent. Is that correct, the planner?
Yes, through you, Mayor Charbonneau, that is correct. If council doesn't support the staff recommendation tonight, then this item would go to Bruce County Council.
So anyway, those are my views. Councillor Halpin?
So through you, Mayor. So what happens when it goes back to Bruce County Council? Can they just overrule us or what would happen then?
Planning staff will have to take a recommendation to Bruce County Council on the consent. So the overall consent and its conditions. Bruce County Council will then have a discussion about this particular condition and decide whether or not to leave it in, and if it does, what the implications of that are, or to remove it. Since Saugeen Shores won't sign the deal, my guess is Bruce County Councils will consider removing the condition. But I mean, maybe the planner has a more insight than I do on that.
No further insight.
Any other discussion on this before we call the question? Seeing none, then all in favor? And opposed? It's defeated. Thank you. All right. So now we're on to 7.2 subdivision agreement 395 High Street, and we'll turn that to Candace Ham.
Thank you, Mayor Charbonneau. Conditional approval has been granted by the County of Bruce to sever 2 vacant residential lots from 395 High Street in Southampton. A fourplex is proposed on each of the new lots. To facilitate the development, services need to be extended along Grenville Street South, and the road surface must be widened slightly to meet town standards. By entering into the recommended subdivision agreement, the owner can fulfill the conditions of consent and the lots can be created ahead of the services being installed. The agreement as drafted ensures that the appropriate construction standards are implemented and that the town is adequately protected from any unforeseen circumstances. All other conditions of the severance that are required to be cleared by the town have been fulfilled by the owner. A reference plan has been provided and cash in lieu of parkland has been paid to the town. The required engineering plans and securities have been provided by the owner, and once proof of insurance has also been provided, the subdivision agreement can be executed, and a clearance letter can be issued by the town to the Bruce County Approval Authority for the severances. This concludes my report, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. The recommendation is the council adopt bylaw 116-2025, a bylaw to authorize a subdivision agreement with 12038-242 Canada Incorporated for Derek Myers to service the lands known as 395 High Street, Southampton. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Davinsky, seconded by Mayette. Discussion. Councillor Mayette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. So they're going to be building how many fourplexes on there? Two fourplexes? And the address of those fourplexes will not actually be on High Street anymore. They'll be on Gray Street. Is that right? Is it around the corner anyway, right?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Charbonneau. Yes, it's Grenville Street South, so they will have a Grenville Street South address.
Grenville Street, talking with some of the neighbors on there, is becoming a very busy thoroughfare. Increasingly so with the development of the extension of the Southampton Care Center just up the way. That's becoming quite a busy thoroughfare. This is going to add to it. Has there been any request done or any information provided with regards to the traffic and what the effect of this is going to have on the traffic?
Thank you for the question. Through you, Mayor Charbonneau. So to facilitate this consent, a minor variance application was required, and there was a traffic impact brief that was submitted in support of that minor variance application. There were no improvements that were required as a result of just the specific development proposal.
So the traffic study that was, traffic brief that was provided indicated that this would have no negative impact, and as such, no road improvements would be required. Okay, well, that's the main concern that I'm hearing from people, not so much that there's going to be an overlook or there's going to be density or crowding, but that it's going to have a negative effect. And maybe this will become more apparent in the years and decades to come, because I think there's a lot of proposed development along Grenville Street. Okay, thank you.
And just to be clear, for council's information, this development's already approved, the fourplexes are approved, everything's approved. The only thing, what we're doing here is entering a subdivision agreement to allow servicing to advance before the severances occur. So we're not providing any approval as development, it's approved. We're just deciding whether or not we're going to enter a deal to let them service it, give us the money that we would require. What's the word I'm looking for? The securities, thank you. Looking for the securities, et cetera, to make sure we're okay for them to do that. Okay, are there further questions? The Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. So the cost of the services, it's not a long stretch, but the cost of those services will be borne by this developer?
Thank you for the question. Yes, the developer will be responsible for installing the services. So they first pay the securities to the town, and then they will also pay for those costs. In the agreement, there are two benefiting landowners that have been identified. So if in the future, either of those benefiting landowners will benefit from the services being installed, there may be an opportunity where money would be refunded to the developer who's upfronting the cost currently.
So it's not an automatic that they have to connect. It's a possibility in the future.
Thank you for the question. Through you, Mayor Charbonneau. There are provisions in the bylaw. So currently, if there are individuals who are on septics, which is the case here, the next time they're either looking to upgrade their septic or if new development is proposed, where services are available, our official plan and bylaws do say that there would be a requirement to connect.
Okay, further, Councillor Halpin?
Thank you. Did I read in here that they're gonna widen the road a little bit for the length of that? For the length of the property? And if so, will that cost also be borne by the developer? Thank you.
Through you, Mayor Charbonneau. Yes, the engineering plans are showing that the road base will be widened slightly and the developer will be paying for those costs.
Anything else? Seeing nothing, you've heard the resolution. It's moved and seconded. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, so now we're going on to close to public, and there's a resolution. Well, it's recommended that council move into close to public session to receive a legal update that discusses legal advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege on litigation or potential litigation, and to discuss and provide direction or instructions to ongoing negotiations on behalf of the municipality. So the resolution is that council move into a closed to public session in accordance with the Municipal Act 2001, Section 2392E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, and F, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by the Vice Deputy Mayor, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. All in favor? Council will now move into a closed public session. All right, let's reconvene in open here. I have a resolution that council arise from the close of public session and resume the regular council meeting. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Councilor Halpin, second by Councilor Davinsky. All in favor? That's carried. And I can report from close that council gave direction to staff with respect to 176 Leader Lane Parkland Dedication Land Appraisal. So now we're on to bylaws. One bylaw there. The resolution is that bylaw 116-2025 is hereby read, passed, and sealed this 15th day of December 2025. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Stack, seconded by Grace. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. Confirmatory bylaw, the bylaw 117-2025, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Town of Saugeen Shores, is hereby read, passed, and sealed this 15th day of December 2025. Is there a mover and seconder? Stack and Halpin, all in favor? That is carried. And finally, that this regular council meeting of December, what did I do? Oh, sorry. My apologies to the deputy mayor.
I think this is Mark's last meeting.
It is not. 3 more.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
No, save your tearful goodbyes for a little bit longer. Okay. He wants this one to end though, I think. So I have this resolution, this regular council meeting of December 15, 2025 hereby adjourns at 9:26 PM. Mr. Move seconder, Stack, Mayette, all in favor, carried. Have a good night, everybody. Council stands adjourned. Yes, Merry Christmas.